Good evening, church family. And to all of our guests, to our honored guests tonight, we're so glad to have you with us. We're involved in an exciting Sunday evening sermon series on finding Jesus in the Old Testament. You would expect to find Jesus all through the New Testament, but it was Jesus who said himself, when with his audience who was challenging him, he said, "Search the Scriptures," John 5:39. And all they had was the Old Testament Scriptures. Search the Scriptures, for in them you think you have eternal life, and they are they which testify of me. Jesus challenged us to find him in the Old Testament, like finding Nemo or finding Waldo, but finding Jesus in the Old Testament. That was quite an exciting challenge. And a couple times Christ said, the law and the Psalms and the prophets, way of his division of the Old Testament, testify of me, concerning me. So again, he's invited us to study our Old Testament. And all of us would say that we need to understand our Old Testament better. And we want to know more about Jesus. So it's a win-win situation. If we study more of the Old Testament, we always begin by looking at the book itself and then finding any kind of innuendos toward Jesus, type and shadows, verses, or prophecies. Tonight we're in the book of Zephaniah. Let me ask you, I want you to raise your hand, but let me ask you, how much do you know about Zephaniah? Do you know what the book's about? Do you know where Jesus is found in it? Do you know how it applies to our lives today? Well, just hang with me now for the next 30 minutes, and all those questions will be answered. And we'll have a wonderful study in a book that's unfortunately overlooked. One of these books in the Bible that we observe the Passover, we pass over it. And I want you to look at this Zephaniah with me tonight. When you look at Zephaniah, look at chapter 1 and verse 1. It's really all we know about the man is in this very first verse of the book that bears his name. The word of the Lord which came to Zephaniah, the son of Cushi, the son of Gedaliah, the son of Amariah, the son of Hezekiah, in the days of Josiah, the son of Ammon, king of Judah. Sounds like Dr. Seuss, doesn't it? And all these ayahs. But please note here, very important, if that is Hezekiah the king, you remember the children of Israel were 12 tribes. And then when the son of Solomon came to the throne, Rehoboam, the older ones came to him and said, your father was a great king, the glory of Solomon, but it came with a price tag. We have been overtaxed, we have been so taxed by him that we ask you to just give us a break and you'll have us as faithful followers forever. Well, after that, he called in the younger men. He said, what do you all think about that? They said, oh, no. You need to show them who's boss. This is a really important concept here. That's why we have elders in the church, older ones, wiser ones. And so he took the younger ones' advice. And when he had his next meeting with all the people, he said, I'm going to be even harder than my father was. And they said, that's the case. We don't follow you anymore. 10 tribes split. Now, they didn't split geographically, but they split as far as ideology as who they're going to follow. And rather than following the king, Rehoboam and Judah and Benjamin now become the southern kingdom. The other 10 take a man named Jeroboam to be their leader. He was idolatrous from the very first day. And of course, evil company corrupts good morals. Bad leaders leads you into bad ways. And so they all became idolatrous, the northern kingdom. God was so upset with that, he allowed the Assyrians, a pagan people, to overtake them. Now, Zephaniah is in the southern kingdom. And he sees the very same thing happening to his people. And so he's crying out to them, destruction. The key theme in Zephaniah is the day of the Lord. The day of the Lord. Now, I also want to tell you this. Zephaniah's name means Jehovah has hidden. Or hidden. And we've noticed that these prophets, sometimes their names speak to their prophecy. What is he talking about here? I'm going to show you in a few moments. But he is a prophet of destruction. Now, we have two prophets in the Old Testament, both with Z beginnings. To help you remember that, the theme of Zephaniah is the prophet of destruction. Zechariah, we'll see in 2 weeks, is a prophet of construction. But to be fair to Zephaniah, when you look at his book, there actually breaks down to 3 concepts. The prophet's own people are indicted. Judah. A denunciation of the foreign nations, we'll see later on in chapter 2. But there is a glimmer, a vision of future glory. And so he's not completely destruction, but he is for the most part. The day of the Lord is a day of judgment. Look at Zephaniah chapter 1, verses 2 and 3. I will utterly consume all things from off the land, saith the Lord. I will consume man and beast. I will consume the fowls of the heaven and the fishes of the sea and the idols, which the wicked, and I will cut off man from off the land, saith the Lord. Notice what the problem is here again. It's idolatry. Look at verses 10 and 11. And it came to pass in that day, saith the Lord, that there shall be the noise of a cry from the fish gate, and a howling from the second, and a great crushing from the hills. Howl ye inhabitants of Maktah, for all the merchants' people are cut down, all that they bear silver are cut off. Destruction. 1:7 really talks about the day of the Lord in this way. Hold thy peace at the presence of the Lord, for the day of the Lord is at hand. For the Lord hath prepared a sacrifice, he hath bid his guest. What he's saying here is, when generals went to war, you remember Saul wanted Samuel to offer sacrifice? God is calling all to battle, a war against God. You don't want to be on the wrong side of God. Then, in chapter 3:11, is the day of salvation. In that day shalt thou not be ashamed for all thy doings, whereof thou hast transgressed against me. For then I will take away out of the midst of thee them that rejoice in thy pride, and thou shalt no more be haughty because of my holy mountain. So there is hope. One thing I want to also mention in chapter 1 and verse 1, Hezekiah, if Hezekiah is the king, then Zephaniah is the only prophet we have in the Old Testament with royal blood. But one more thing I want to show you. Notice the king that he's in the days of. In the days of Josiah. I want to suspect, from my study, suggest that he was a prophet just before Josiah really takes power. Let me show you why I think that. Keep your marker here and go with me to the book of 2 Chronicles. 2 Chronicles. In 2 Chronicles 33, very important. It begins at verse 1, 2 Chronicles 33. Manasseh was 12 years old when he began to reign. He reigned 55 years in Jerusalem. If you have a man who's running the show for 55 years, he has a tremendous impact upon generations. And he did. And it was all evil. I don't think the southern kingdom ever got over Manasseh's reign. Even though I think he changed at the end, it was too late. Now look with me at verse 21. Ammon, his son, becomes king. And if you can believe this, the Bible says he was more wicked than his father. He lasted 2 years and the people assassinated him. And then they put his son, Josiah, on the throne. Chapter 34, verse 1. Josiah was 8 years old when he began to reign. And he reigned in Jerusalem 31 years. 31 years. And he would have gone longer, but he was killed in battle. But notice verse 2. And he did that which was right in the sight of the Lord, and walked in the ways of David his father. His father wasn't David, it was Ammon. His grandfather Manasseh. But what he did was he went back in his lineage. He knew that they were wicked, and he found a righteous king, father, to follow. It was David. David, his father, and declined neither to do the right hand nor to the left. He went right down the middle of God's word. For in the 8th year, make him 16 years of age. Young people, listen up. This is great for young people here. He's 16 years old. While he was yet young, he began to seek after God of David, his father. And in the 12th year, which makes him about 20, to purge Judah and Jerusalem from the high places and the groves and the carved images and the molten images. And they break down the altars of Balaam in the presence and in the images that were on high above them. He cut down the groves and the carved images and the molten images. He brake them in pieces and made dust of them and strode them upon the graves of them that had sacrificed unto them. He broke down all that idolatry, physically, literally. And if you read Gideon, that's not popular. But he did all of that. He took all their gods, small g-s, away at 20 years of age. At 26, look at verse 8. Now in the 18th year of his reign, when he had purged the land, he kissed these two fellas, and they go down to the end of this verse, to repair the house of the Lord his God. Get the house of God, the temple, back in order. Why? It had fallen in disrepair. Why? It wasn't being used. They weren't worshiping God. And guess what happens? Verse 14. As they're getting things all organized, guess what fell through the cracks? The Word of God. They find the writings of Moses, probably Deuteronomy. And they bring it to the king, and in verse 19, this is the first time he's heard it. And when they read it to him, he tears his clothes, which shows great mourning, great distress. He says, we're not following this. Well, we're going to start following it. And he told his people, get together, I want to read this thing to you, and we're going to start doing it. Well, verse 27 and 28, God is so pleased with him that what we're going to read about tonight in Zephaniah, he's going to put off for a while until Josiah dies. And then it does happen, the fall of Jerusalem with Babylon. But this is why it all fits in here. And then in verse 29, at the end of the chapter, he said, we're going to follow God. And he said, yes, we're going to follow God. It was called the revival of Josiah. Now, we come to the prophet, I think, just before him, who made this warning, the prophet of doom. Look at verse 12, chapter 1. And it shall come to pass at that time, I will search Jerusalem with a lamp and punish the men that are settled on their lees. Oh, I love that. Now, men, I'm going to tell the women this, so be ready next time this happens. You know what settled on your lees is? Today we call it couch potato. So if your wife is cleaning house and you're watching a ball game, she said, are you settled on your lees? You know what she's talking about. They're complacent. They're complacent. They're not seeing what's going on around them. They're laying around lazy. That's what it says here. That say in their heart, the Lord will not do good, neither will he do evil. God's not going to do anything to us. You see, they don't have any respect for God. This is the reasons why God lists here why these folks are going to be judged. God always gives a reason. God can do what he wants to do, but God shows you the reason why these people are so wicked, they're going to fall. It's called syncretism, and I'll show you what I mean in a few minutes. Look at verse 4 with me, chapter 1. I also stretch out mine hand upon Judah and upon all the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and I will cut off the remnant of Baal from this place in the name of Chimerims with the priest. These are idolatrous concepts. And then that worship the host of heaven upon the housetop. There were some who just had bought into idolatry altogether. This is what's called syncretism, which means, oh yeah, I worship God, but I also worship the idols. And them that worship and that swear by his name, by the Lord, and those that swear by the name of Malcolm at the same time. That's syncretism. You know, synchronized swimmers, they're all doing the same thing. They think they can do the same thing with an idol god, same thing with God. That's not. God says you cannot be halt between two opinions. You love one or hate the other, hold to one despite the other. You cannot serve God and mammon. And in verse 6, and them that are turned back from the Lord, and those that have not sought the Lord, nor inquire him. Those who have gone completely away from him, or don't even seek him at all. Okay? These are different kind of categories of people that don't follow God. So he says, hold thy peace at the presence of the Lord God, for the day of the Lord is at hand. The day of the Lord. This is the day of destruction. The Lord hath prepared a sacrifice. He hath bid his guests. Then we see just plain worldliness has grappled the heart of these people. Chapter 1, verses 8 and 9. It shall come to pass in the day of the Lord's sacrifice, and I will punish the princes and the king's children. Now notice this. And all such as are clothed with strange apparel. Wow, that could be a sermon. They began to dress like the world. Let that sink in for a minute. And in the same day also will I punish all those that leap on the threshold. This was a custom of idolatry. They were worshiping like the world. Which fill their masters' houses with violence and deceit. They were living like the world. Dressing like the world, worshiping like the world, living like the world. It shall come to pass in that day, saith the Lord, that there shall be the noise of a cry from the fish gate, and from the howling from the second, and a great crushing from the hills. Howl, you inhabitants of Makta, for all the merchants' people are cut down, all they that bear silver are cut off. Judgment day. Look at chapter 3, verses 3 and 4. Her princesses, those that rule them within her, are roaring lions. I'm told that lions roar after they have killed their prey. Her judges are evening wolves. In the night, nothing's more fierce than a wolf. And it says here in the King James, they gnaw not the bones till the morrow. Literally, it is, they leave not a bone till morning. They eat everything, bones and all. Her prophets are light and treacherous persons. Those, they're religious leaders. Her priests have polluted the sanctuary. They have done violence to the law. They don't follow God. And then we have skepticism. I mentioned in chapter 1 and verse 12, he takes a lamp looking for those to be punished by God. And it ends that verse by saying, the Lord will not do good, neither do evil. They were skeptic of God's power. In chapter 3 and verse 5, the just Lord is in the midst thereof. He will not do iniquity every morning. Doth he bring his judgment to light? He faileth not. God is faithful, but the unjust knoweth no shame. Skeptical. And just flat rebellious. Chapter 3 and verse 2, she obeyed not. Get this now. This is a rebellious people. Notice here, 4 things. She obeyed not the voice of God. That's Judah. She received not correction from God. She trusted not in the Lord, and she drew not near to her God. That's rebellion. And we also mentioned verse 7, I said, surely thou wilt fear me. Thou wilt receive instruction, so their dwelling should not be cut off. In other words, he said, you will listen to me, right? Howsoever I punished them, but they rose early and corrupted all their doings. They said, no, we're not. God's judgment is universal. Chapter 1, we read about that. Look at chapter 1, verses 2 and 3 again. I will utterly consume all things from off the land, saith the Lord. I will consume man and beast. I will consume the fowls of the heaven and the fishes of the sea and the idols with the wicked. And I will cut off man from off the land, saith the Lord. But in chapter 2, we mentioned in our outline a minute ago, he talks about different nations that will also be affected when this Babylonian siege comes. For instance, in chapter 2 and verse 4, he looks to the west first. He looks to the sea. For Gaza shall be forsaken, Ashkelon, a desolation. They shall drive out Ashdod at the noonday, and Ekron shall be rooted up. Woe to the inhabitants of the sea coast, the nation of Sherethites. The word of the Lord is against you, O Canaan, the land of Philistines. I will even destroy thee, that there shall be no inhabitants. And the sea coast shall be dwellings and cottages for shepherds and folds for flocks. And the coast shall be for a remnant of the house of Judah. Notice, here's a hope. God's people shall dwell in this land. They shall feed thereupon in the house of Ashkelon shall they lay down in the evening, for the Lord their God shall visit them and turn away their captivity. Then he turns to the east, verse 8. I've heard the reproach of Moab and the revelings of the children of Ammon. Now, you remember your Bible history? What happened when Sodom and Gomorrah? Sodom was so bad that Lot had to leave, and the wife turned back, turned a pillar of salt. So you have Lot in a cave with his 2 daughters, And they're afraid they're not going to have any children, which would be a curse upon them. So they get their father drunk one night after another, and both the girls have a baby by their father. Guess who they were? Moab and Ammon. And now their people are so wicked, whereby they have reproached my people and magnified themselves against their border. Therefore, as I live, saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, surely Moab shall be as Sodom, the children of Ammon as Gomorrah, even the breeding of the nettles or the weeds in the salt pits. In other words, this place is going to be desolate, a perpetual desolation. The residue of my people shall spoil them, the remnant of my people shall possess them. In other words, my people shall move in. This shall they have for their pride, because they have reproached and magnified themselves against the people of the Lord of hosts. The Lord will be terrible unto them, for he will famish all their gods, small g plural, of the earth, and men shall worship him, every one from his place, even all the isles of the heathen. Then in verse 12, he turns to the south. One verse. You Ethiopians also, ye shall be slain by my sword. Then he turns north. And he shall stretch out his hand against the north and destroy Assyria, and will make Nineveh a desolation. Remember Nineveh? Remember Jonah? Remember Nahum? Nineveh? A desolation and dry like a wilderness. So bad, verses 14 and 15, he says that the place called Nineveh will have birds in their windows of their buildings. Desolation, just caw, 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 or an owl, hoo, hoo, hoo. And animals will be walking through the buildings of desolation. These people will meet their doom. The day of punishment is coming. Zephaniah 1, verses 2 and 3. I've already read that. Well, let's read that, 2 and 3. No, I haven't. Notice this. This, he's calling for them to come back to him. Well, I did read 1, 2, and 3. Let's read verses 14 through 18. The great day of the Lord is near. It's near, and hasteneth greatly. Even the voice of the day of the Lord, the mighty men shall cry there bitterly. That day is a day of wrath, a day of trouble and distress, a day of wasteness and desolation, a day of darkness. Remember that. A day of darkness and gloominess, a day of clouds and thick darkness, a day of the trumpet of alarm against the fenced cities and against the high towers. And I will bring distress upon men, and they shall walk like blind men, because they have sinned against the Lord. And their blood shall be poured out as dust, and their flesh as the dung. Neither their silver nor their gold shall be able to deliver them in the day of the Lord's wrath. But the whole land shall be devoured by the fire of his jealousy. For he shall make even a speedy riddance of all them that dwell in the land. All will be judged. No one will escape. We've mentioned already those nations, 2, 4 to 15. Look at chapter 3 and verse 8. Therefore, wait ye upon me, saith the Lord, till the day that I rise up to pray. For my determination is to gather the nations, that I may assemble the kingdoms, to pour upon them mine indignation, even all my fierce anger. For all the earth shall be devoured with the fire of my jealousy. Judah must humble herself. I must tell you, my brethren, if this nation is going to continue, God's people have got to humble themselves. And then show the world how to humble themselves. Look at chapter 2 and verse 3 with me. This is precious. Seek ye the Lord. Jeremiah said, you shall seek me, and you shall find me when you search for me with all of your heart. Seek ye the Lord, all ye that meek of the earth. Meek means God-controlled, which hath wrought his judgment. In other words, respect his judgment. Seek righteousness. Seek God-controlledness, meekness. It may be ye shall be hid. No, it may be ye shall be what? Hid in the day of the Lord's anger. I don't think that's a coincidence. Remember, what was the name of Zephaniah means? Hidden by Jehovah. God will hide us. The whole idea is they're going to be destroyed, but if you'll follow me, God will hide you. There'll be a remnant. There'll be a saved group hidden by the Lord. Chapter 3, 11 and 12. In that day shalt thou not be ashamed for all their doings, wherein thou hast transgressed against me. For then I will take away out of the midst of thee them that rejoice in thy pride, and thou shalt no more be haughty because of my holy mountain. I will also leave in the midst of thee an afflicted and poor people, and they shall trust in the name of the Lord. And judgment brings healing. We saw in chapter 2 and in verse 9, therefore, as I live, saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, surely Moab shall be as Sodom, and the children of Ammon as Gomorrah. But the end says, but my people shall possess them. And in chapter 3, 9 through 12, he talks about this healing again. Then will I turn to the people a pure language, that they may call upon the name of the Lord, to serve him with one consent. From beyond the rivers of Ethiopia, my supplements, even my daughters of my dispersed, shall bring mine offering. And then I want to note, the remnant shall be saved. Look at verses 14 to the end of this book. Sing, O daughter of Zion. Shout, O Israel. Be glad and rejoice for all the heart of daughter, O daughter of Jerusalem. The Lord hath taken away thy judgments. He hath cast out thine enemy. The King of Israel, even the Lord, is in the midst of thee. Thou shalt not see evil anymore. In that day, see, this is now the day of salvation. It shall be said to Jerusalem, fear thou not, and to Zion, let not thine hands be slack. The Lord thy God in the midst of thee is mighty. He will save. He will rejoice over thee with joy. He will rest in his love. He will joy over thee with singing. I will gather them that are sorrowful for the solemn assembly, who are of thee, to whom the reproach of it was a burden. Behold, at that time I will undo all that afflict thee, and I will save her that halteth, and gather her that is driven out. And I will get them praise and fame in every land where they have been put to shame. At that time I will bring you again, even in the time that I gather you. I will make you a name and a praise among all people of the earth, when I turn back your captivity before your eyes, saith the Lord. So are you ready for God's judgment day? That's Zephaniah's message. But where is Jesus in Zephaniah? Notice I mentioned to you back in chapter 1 and verse 3, I read a couple of times, 1 verses 2 and 3, he says, I will destroy you. I will take you to your end. Well, that's also mentioned in Matthew chapter 13. Go to Matthew chapter 13, and guess who's talking here? It's Jesus. Matthew 13, beginning at verse 36. When Jesus sent the multitude away, he went into the house. His disciples came unto him, saying, declare unto us the parable of the tares of the field. And he answered and said unto them, he that soweth the good seed is the Son of Man. The field is the world, and the good seed are the children of the kingdom. But the tares are the children of the wicked one. The enemy that sowed them is the devil. The harvest is the end of the world, and the reapers are the angels. As therefore the tares are gathered and burned in the fire, so shall it be in the end of this world. The Son of Man shall send forth his angels. They shall gather out of his kingdom all things that offend, and them with do iniquity, and shall cast them into a furnace of fire. There shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth. Then shall the righteous shine forth as the sun in the kingdom of their Father. Who hath ears to hear, let him hear. And then turn to 2 Peter chapter 3. This is a direct concept talking about the end of the world, Christ's second coming. Listen to what he says here at verse 10. But the day of the Lord will come as a thief in the night, in which the heavens shall pass away with a great noise. The elements shall melt with fervent heat. The earth also and the works that are therein shall be burned up. Seeing then that all these things shall be dissolved, what manner of persons ought you to be in holy conversation and in godliness? He's doing the very same thing Zephaniah was doing in his day. The fall of Jerusalem to them was the end of the world. Get right with God now. But when Christ comes again, it's the end of the world forever. Get right with God today is what Peter is saying. Looking for and hastening to the coming of the day of God, wherein the heavens being on fire shall be dissolved, and the elements shall melt with fervent heat. Nevertheless, we, according to the promise, look for a new heavens and a new earth, wherein dwelleth righteousness. Wherefore, beloved, seeing that you look for such things, be diligent. She may be found of him in peace, without spot, and blameless. Look at verse 16. As also in all his epistles, speaking to them of these things, in which are some things hard to understand, which they that are unlearned, unstable, twist, as they do also the other scriptures, to their own destruction. Today we have this terrible doctrine of it's called the rapture. It's called the 1,000-year reign of Christ upon the earth. It's called premillennialism. This is what he's talking about here. People have a second chance. There is no second chance when Christ comes again. That's it. You therefore, beloved, seeing you know these things before, beware lest you also being led away with the error of the wicked, fall from your own steadfastness. But grow in the grace and knowledge of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. To him be glory both now and forever. Amen. And then the darkness he talks about. In Zephaniah chapter 1 and verse 15, I told you, remember that when I was reading it a moment ago? That day is a day of wrath, a day of trouble and distress, a day of wasteness and desolation, a day of darkness and gloominess, a day of clouds and thick darkness. Look at Matthew 24 in verse 29. Again, Jesus is talking. Matthew 24 and verse 29. Immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of heaven shall be shaken. This is the end of the world. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. Then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet. They shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to another. Now please get this. He says, when that happens, God is going to come. And look at chapter 8 and verse 5. Matthew chapter 8 and verse 5. What's going to happen to those people not right with God? Chapter 8, beginning at verse 5. And when Jesus was entered into Capernaum, there came unto him a centurion, begging him, and saying, Lord, my servant lieth at home sick of the palsy, grievously tormented. Jesus said to him, I'll come and heal him. The centurion answered and said to him, Lord, I'm not worthy that thou shouldst come under my roof. This is a Roman soldier talking to Jesus, saying, you're so great, you don't need to come to my door, but just speak the word only, and my servant will be healed. For I'm a man under authority, having soldiers under me. I say to this man, go, and he goeth. To another, come, and he cometh. To my servant, do this, and he doth. I'm over 100 men. I say, snap, and they go. So you're Lord. You just say the word. This is a pagan Roman. And when Jesus heard it, he marveled. It said to them that followed, verily I say unto you, I have not found so great faith, no, not in all Israel. Now let's sink in for a minute. And I say to you, that many shall come from the east, remember earlier, Zephaniah, from the east and from the west, and shall sit down with Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, in the kingdom of heaven. But the children of the kingdom shall be cast out to outer, there's that word, darkness. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Zephaniah is a powerful book. Zephaniah's prophecy came true, every word, when the fall of Jerusalem, the Babylonians took it. In fact, Nehemiah came back later, he said there wasn't one stone upon another. God means what he says. There's a great day coming, the day of the Lord. But here's the quick question. The day of the Lord, will it be a day of destruction for you? Eternal destruction in hell? Or a day of salvation? Lord, here am I. Well done, thou good and faithful servant. It's all up to you. Are you hidden in the Lord? He wants to hide you in his bosom. He wants you to come as we stand and sing.